In 1954, Alan B. Cullimer created a game that's been consistently rated among the top 100 games of all time. Since its first public release in 1959, it's been in constant publication, selling an estimated 300,000 copies. This classic has been played by presidents, kings, famous authors, and random college students all around the world. Of course, I can only be describing the masterpiece of strategy, tactics, and negotiation known as Diplomacy. Renegade Game Studios is the current publisher, and as much as everyone loves the original, Renegade has created a new diplomacy experience featuring new powers, a different time period, and a beautiful new map. Diplomacy Era of Empire is a game for 2 to 7 players, co-designed by our friend Thomas Haber. It uses the same basic mechanics as the original game, with a few fun new twists. We recently met up with Thomas at the historic Hope Hotel in Dayton, Ohio, to learn all about how this new game continues the amazing Cullimer tradition. Let's make it hot. Well, hello, my friends. We are coming to you from the Hope Hotel in Dayton, Ohio. We were asked by our friends at Renegade to do a how to play for the brand new Diplomacy Era of Empire, co-designed by the one and only Thomas Haber. One of the other things that Mr. Haber is known for is running epic diplomacy events all around the country. And what we are standing on now is the 12 by 8 foot map that he uses in these events. This is not what comes in the box. The actual game is this size, and we will have pictures that look like this of the actual product as we go along. But I thought this would be great to demonstrate and for Tom to be able to teach everybody how to play. But we need an epic location for an epic new game, and we are standing in the room where that picture was taken. And in that picture is the setup for and then eventual signing of the Dayton Accords, which ended the conflict in Kosovo, which was absolutely dreadful, and we're so grateful that that was resolved, and we're super excited to be in the space where that happened, talking about an incredible game. Tom, thanks for joining us. Tell us all about your new game.
Well, it's always great to be here with Board Game Nation. We've collaborated in a number of events. We're good allies, both in and outside of the game.
Yes.
And let me tell you a little bit about Era of Empire. So in this game, you're one of the 7 great powers set in 1870 in the age of new imperialism. Those powers are Russia, Turkey, Britain, China, France, the Netherlands, and Japan. Your goal is to control 22 supply centers on the board. Those are indicated by these little stars. But to do so, you have to compete against the 6 other players on the board. In this game, you play through game years, as I mentioned, starting in 1870. Those are split into spring and fall turns. In each turn, you're going to begin with a period of negotiation with the other players, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you set up as a group at the outset. In that time, you will chat in groups of 2, 3, whatever you like, scheming with the other players about what you're actually going to do. At the end of that time period, you are going to secretly write down what your pieces are going to actually do. Those get revealed simultaneously, and all the pieces on the board move. Once that spring turn is done, you go to a fall turn where you again negotiate with the other players, do some scheming, write down your orders, and then reveal for all to see. At the end of that fall turn is where you look to see how many of these supply centers, where you see little ownership markers here, that you control, versus how many pieces you have on the board. If you've gained new centers, you get to grow. If you've lost centers to other players, you have to shrink and remove pieces off the board. And you continue through to the next game year, 1871, 1872, until either someone reaches those magic number of 22 centers, or you end based upon a predetermined time limit, or you end on a predetermined turn limit. In the case of those last two, whoever has the most centers is going to win the game. So let's dive into what you actually do with your pieces during the game. How do you maneuver around the board and take control of your empire? The first thing that pieces can do are hold. That is to say, they sit in place with the strength of 1. In Diplomacy Era of Empire, you follow the rules of 1. You have 1 order per piece on the board. Each piece has a strength of 1. And you're limited to only 1 piece per province. It makes it very simple. The complexity comes in that negotiation with the other players. You may notice that there's 2 distinct types of pieces placed on the board here. You have fleets, shown here as these ships, and you have armies. They have limitations in what they can do. which brings us to the second type of action, which is movement. Movement is from where you are currently located to an adjacent location. And that movement is done simultaneously with all the pieces on the board. So for instance, I can send this fleet in Madras to Ceylon, or I could send it to the Bay of Bengal. I could send this army in Delhi to Nepal. The limitations that you have based upon these pieces is thus: armies can only exist in named land areas. They cannot go out to sea. Fleets can exist in any named water area, but they can also exist on any coastal province, as in something that is touching water. So all the pieces move at the same time. So it is quite possible for you to move to the same location as someone else. Let's take a classic example here that's also based on the original diplomacy, where you've got the Black Sea as a common location where both Russia and Turkey can move to. So we have Constantinople to the Black Sea, and we have Odessa to the Black Sea. Both units going to the same location at the same exact time. They each have a strength of 1, so they will bounce back to their original location, also known as a standoff. If you have equal strength, you go back to your original location. If you have greater strength, then you can move into that location. That brings us to our third type of action, which is known as support. Support allows you to lend your strength from one unit to another so they have greater attack power in trying to keep or maintain control of a territory. Let's go through and look at an example here with one of our new powers in the game, the Dutch. So we have 2 fleets here sitting on these islands for the Netherlands, and they want to move to the South Indian Ocean. The way that you would order it is, one fleet, you would give the movement order out to the South Indian Ocean, and the other fleet would write a support order, and I'm going to turn this guy on his side to indicate that he's supporting, into the South Indian Ocean. So that is a strength of 2, and it would make it in against any attack that's strength of 1, or any unit that's already sitting in there. What do I mean by that? Let's just say the British were sitting in the South Indian Ocean for this attack, strength 2 on 1. In this circumstance, Britain is defeated. They are going to be dislodged in battle, and at the end of all the movement, this British fleet will have to retreat. Retreats are handled the exact same way that you handle movements. They are written down in secret. Only there's no negotiation for this portion of the battle. They're going to write an adjacent location that they can retreat to. The rules are you cannot retreat to the site from where the attack came from. You cannot retreat to the site of a standoff or bounce, and it must be unoccupied. So in this case, I could retreat all the way over here to the Gulf of Aden, because that is an adjacent location, it is unoccupied, and it's a valid place to retreat my units to. What you need to remember is, if you can move there, you can support an action there, whether it be support to hold or to move. Let's move some of the pieces around and talk about the last action you can take, which is a convoy. A convoy allows you to transport an army across a body of water to another land area with either your fleets or fleets of one of your neighbors. What does this look like? You would have one order for this army in Bombay to go to Oman. You'd have another order for your fleet in the Arabian Sea to convoy the army from Bombay to Oman, and it would act as a strength 1 attack from Bombay to Oman. Now, the Turkish fleet is moving at the exact same time. So it could order from the Persian Gulf to Oman, again, adjacent movement, and this would be a 1-on-1, which results in a bounce. In this case, the fleet goes back to the Persian Gulf, and the army goes back to its original location. However, if you had support, in this case, we'll say this fleet in Aden, because it is adjacent to Oman, offers its support for that convoy. So you'd write Aden supports Bombay to Oman. That is a strength 2, which results in this army making it in via convoy and this fleet bouncing back. You only need one more strength than the opposing units to achieve your goal, which in this case is to make the convoy successful for the attack to actually go through. Now, as I mentioned, Convoys can involve other fleets. So let's bring this back to Bombay and let's set up a new location for where you'd want to order. So we'll come right down here to Shiraz. They're good friends. Turkey's inviting Great Britain in. So we're going to have Bombay to Shiraz as the order, Arabian Sea convoys Bombay to Shiraz, and Persian Gulf convoys Bombay to Shiraz. It will hit you right here, and make it all the way here to Shiraz. But if Turkey decides not to do that, let's just say when the orders are revealed, Turkey instead orders their own fleet into Shiraz. This army will be stuck in its original location, and Turkey makes it in. You don't know until the orders are revealed whether someone's with you or if they stab you in the back. There are a few unique geographical features to note in this game. The first of which is with this named area known as the Suez Canal. What this means is if you are a fleet in the Mediterranean Sea, you have to first go to Egypt before moving on to another adjacent province rather than going directly from water province to water province. You have to make a stop in Egypt. If you're an army, you just move into Egypt, you don't care about the Suez Canal. Just know that this has to be the stopover for fleets to go from one side to the other. Another unique geographical feature to note in this game are these yellow arrows. These are known as straits. These mean that you can send a fleet from one adjacent area, which is Madras to Ceylon, or vice versa, without having to go out to a water province first. Additionally, armies can traverse these straits, Ceylon to Madras, Madras to Ceylon, without having to go through a convoy. They are directly adjacent. The last geographic feature that we want to discuss is the Himalayan mountain range here, sort of crossed off. This is an impassable territory. You have to go around it with these named province areas instead of going directly into it. As a general rule in diplomacy, if the province isn't named, you can't move there. It applies here. Fans of history, especially geography, will note that the province here of Singapore is much larger than it is in real life. This was enlarged for gameplay purposes because you're expected to put units and a supply center marker on there. You also know we did the same thing where we shifted Hong Kong to where the island of Hainan is. We understand what the actual real island name is, but again, it's just done for gameplay purposes. You got to be able to put your pieces there. So we have hold, move, support, convoy as the 4 actions. We have a spring turn for negotiation and movement, followed by a fall turn of negotiation and movement. At the end of that fall turn, as I mentioned, is where you do the check to see how many of these units you have on the board versus how many supply centers you own. And that's what's known commonly as the winter phase. And this is where you have some very fun mechanics. The first of which is known as conscription. When you're adding more pieces to the board, you are allowed in this game to add those units, be them armies or fleets, to any supply center that you own. Again, it's indicated by this ownership marker over this star. You specify the type of unit, army or fleet, and location in which you're building it. So you have no direct ownership of home centers in this game. Instead, whatever you own is where you can build, and that's conscription. The other type of action that you can take is known as conversion. Regardless of whether you have builds or disbands and have to remove pieces because you lost, you can convert this army to a fleet. Or if this fleet was in a supply center, back in Madras is where we'll move them, this fleet can convert to an army. As long as you are sitting in a supply center, you can change an army to a fleet or a fleet to an army simply by specifying it in your written orders. So you have conscription and conversion as 2 game mechanics that really spice things up at the end of the game year. You play through game year over game year until one person reaches those 22 centers, or you end based on time, or end based on turn limit. Whoever has the most centers, in the case of turn or time limit, is the winner. But your goal should always be to get to those 22 by whatever means necessary.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to explain this to us. I'm really excited to get a chance to play this game. I'm sure that we'll be able to see you at some of the different events coming up. in the not so distant future, where would I find those events?
Well, you'd want to go to Renegade's site where they'll post specific conventions where we're at, or join the Renegade Games Discord where we have a diplomacy thread that keeps people up to date on events going on all across the world.
Fantastic. Well, you've heard it from the man himself. This is Diplomacy Era of Empire. Watch your back. Thank you for watching our how to play video for Diplomacy Era of Empire. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and we'll do our best to answer as quickly as possible. Thank you to the Hope Hotel for inviting us to use their historic meeting room, and of course, thank you to Thomas Haver for taking the time to walk us through his game. A big thank you to our friends at Renegade Game Studios for sponsoring this video. And last but certainly not least, a big thank you to the citizens of Board Game Nation for their continued support. We could not do this without you. If you'd like to support the craziness that we're doing here, get loads of exclusive content, and engage with our fantastic community, click the join button below, find the membership level that's right for you, and become an official citizen of Board Game Nation. We're currently working on in-depth coverage of the U.S. Nationals Diplomacy Final from Gen Con. When that video is ready, you'll find it right here. To check out our other championship board game coverage, here you go. For our latest bit of mayhem, right this way. And if you're ready for more from Board Game Nation, click here to subscribe. My name is Gary Blevins. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.